Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I can see we're on. We're on in Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids. We're here. How are you, Alanna?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. It's late. It's dark. That's why I look a little bit like disheveled over here because I've had a very long day. And I'm like struggling to stay alive over here with my tea.
I didn't tell you. I know, like, guys, we chatted before Alanna and I hit live, and I didn't tell you I've had this massive headache this morning. I had to cancel my first client, which I never do, apart from when I had COVID. And I was like, I'm really sorry. Can we, reschedule and do it? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. I've been at the children's hospital overnight with my daughter's eye. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, it's just so hard for me to do that.
No, I know. I never, ever, ever do that. I never like take any time for myself. And I'm just like, go, 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 go. And then, whoo, it's been crazy. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. And it's late for you. It's 9 o'clock, right? So
Yes, it is. Which is like, normally I'm in bed around 9:30, 10. So this is definitely like getting me at the end of my day, but I'm going to rally. I'm here for you. I got it. Let's do this.
I'm so grateful. Next time we'll do like a 9 or 10 a.m., which is a 7 or 8 p.m. for you.
Okay.
We'll do something better. Because I would also be like, at that time. Anyway, maybe you can tell us. You tell us, what are we talking about today? Why did we want to make this live stream, this conversation? Tell us.
Okay, so I think we are talking about, there's so many things that we could be talking about, but we are talking about how we often what's the title that we came up with, because it was really good. I can tell you about what we're going to talk about, but it was not as good as that catchy little title. Right?
The title is teaching our kids too young. Are we setting them up to fail?
Yes. So really talking about pushing academics earlier and earlier and earlier, and how that is impacting our kids. And I think it's doing a lot more damage than people really realize. Yeah.
I'm so with you there. And I think because of my headache this morning, and I'm like, I'm going to be less polite about it, because sometimes I get it, schools have it tough with all the policies and procedures they have to follow in the curriculum, and today I'm like, screw that. No,
I don't care. No. Well, and I was a teacher for 10 years, so I get it, and I'm like all pro teacher, and a lot of the times teachers, there's only so much that they can do, right? Like, and I've been in that position. I taught for 10 years, and it's hard. You know what is right, and you know what you should be doing. But when you have a district and like you said, curriculum and standards and testing and this and that you have to do, there's just only so much that you can do. And so I think that just gets like funneled down. And also it's starting so much younger. So it's like not even talking about school, just even thinking about daycare and pre-K and home. Parents, like I see parents constantly posting all the time of infants, 3-month-old, 5-month-old, 7-month-old, I need to be doing something. What am I doing? Why? I need to be stimulating my kid. I need to be signing up for these classes. And, I want to do music, and I want to do this, and I'm like, whoa, like, relax. It's okay. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Like, it's okay if you do, but it's also okay if you don't. And then, that kind of leads to this whole mentality of, which is the kind of, I think their biggest issue is this mentality of like, we have to constantly be teaching our kids something. Otherwise they're not learning. And that's just not true at all. Our kids don't need to be taught the vast majority of things. And so when you're pushing that on them from day one, everything from, we need to teach them the alphabet. We need to teach them, how to sit fast, right? Crawl. We want them to be doing all these things like before they're ready. And then that ends up translating into like pushing this academic vibe. Like, we need to teach them the alphabet. They need to learn, the numbers. They need to do, and then it's like they're 3, and then people are like, why isn't my kid doing this? And I'm like, they don't need to be doing that, and it's just so much pressure for them. I don't know if you guys see that. Like, I know that obviously I'm in the US, and our education system is
Different.
Different and needs a lot of work. I think it needs to be like burned to the ground and completely started anew. But that's like a whole separate conversation. I don't know if it's like that for you. And I feel like your community like is pretty global, right? So maybe that's not necessarily the case everywhere. But yeah, tell me, like, is that what you're seeing like in your community, in your space, like where you live, like parents like feeling this push to be teaching their kids stuff from day one?
Yes, the pressure, right? And I think a couple of things. Yes, the amazing parents and carers and educators who are in Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids are from all over. Like there's a big chunk. I actually think maybe it's even the biggest chunk of the community are in the US, right?
Oh.
So and then all over Australia, Europe, and everything. But you know, I've had so many conversations with parents as well who, yes, they are invested in and motivated to teach their child social and emotional skills, but there's also this underlying like pressure and desire to have their kids kind of match up to a certain level academically and be doing the right things and be ticking the boxes and not be falling behind, because we don't want that for our kids. But I think there's a massive load of pressure from parents thinking, well, what do other parents think, or what would my child's teacher think if they're not up to scratch? Like it's almost that societal pressure of, you know, kids at this age should be doing this, and is your child ready? And I've seen people on, so I know your platform really is Instagram, where your community and your following is. Guys, if you haven't already followed Alanna's Play, Learn, Thrive Kids account, get on there right now.
Right now.
I was saying before,
I was like just posting to my account right before this. I'm like, oh, I have something to say about this. And then I was like, you know, you get into like a groove and I'm like, oh, and then all right. I got, you know, I was just posting about kids playing and like letting them be and not sticking them in all these different containers, because people, again, it's the pressure. It's like society tells you, oh, you need this thing for your kid and that thing and this boppy and this blah, 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 and this thing to sit in. And it's like, oh my God, no, you don't. Like you literally need none of that stuff. And you know, it's just, I feel like it really is like, this is total societal pressure. And it's interesting that it comes from so many different areas. Like it's not just in one spot in the world, right? Like it's like almost all over, which is frustrating.
I know. In a way, I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, the internet is amazing because now we can connect with and learn from anyone, anywhere in the world. But it's also dangerous in a way that so many people are spreading messages that are unhelpful and put the pressure on us. You know, we all talk about posting your highlight reel online and the good moments and the pretty times and all that stuff. But I remember seeing someone, I can't remember, he came up in my feed, and he's an American who teaches he's posting about teaching young kids how to read, like preschool age kids, he did it with his child, and now he's got a ton of followers. I can't even remember who it is. But yeah, I was like, you know, he obviously is very passionate about it. And I was like, oh, like there's just this the underlying push of, what are you doing? Are you helping your child read? Because you need to be, and this is how to do it. And
that's so true. And the thing is like, it's there's so many layers of it, right? I have a 3-year-old who is extremely advanced, like beyond possibly gifted. I don't care. This is like, that's not why I'm telling you the story, but she's extremely advanced. She wants to read. She's already learning like some phonics-based stuff at her Montessori school. They're having to like take out like the next level of whatever, because that's where she is. And that's okay. Right. So it's like, it's not like you could never teach these things to your kid, or you should never, ever, ever introduce them to this stuff. It's about following your child. And in your family, if you have multiple children, each individual child is going to be so different. So, you know, my almost 7-year-old wanted nothing to do with reading, nothing, until he got to first grade. We don't do any academics at home. I don't even open their backpack. His teacher laughs because she loves it. She's like, when he comes into school and he realizes he hasn't looked over his whatever or done whatever, he's like, oh shit, you know, and he realizes, and it's like that moment where he is starting to learn that that's his responsibility. And I'm like, I don't open their backpacks. We don't do flashcards. We don't do any academics. The only thing that we do is if it's something that they lead. So if they pick it up and they're like, I want to, he literally will tell me now, I want to do math. And I'm like, okay, like, here's a worksheet. Like, I don't, and he's like, more. And so I do. And all right, I'm following his lead. He's asking me, right? He's my 3-year-old is desperate to read, right? So she's like, can we read this? What does this word say? She's wanting to know. So of course I'm giving that to her, but it's not led by me. Right. And I think that's the thing, is like with this whole push of academics, it's that man, whoever he is, maybe his child wanted to read and it just so happened that that's how that worked out for him and his kid. But by making it seem like, oh, you just do X, Y, Z, and then boom, your 3-year-old's reading. The vast majority of 3-year-olds aren't reading, nor should they be, nor does it freaking matter, because it doesn't matter if they read at 8. In most countries that have the best education systems, don't even start teaching academics until age 8.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, I have only just started looking at and seeing articles about different countries, you know, like Switzerland, like everywhere. And again, like, my brain is going everywhere. I have a family that I coach and work with in the US, in New York, actually. And their daughter's the same age as my son, so 7.5. And they're talking about, she has anxiety. And they're talking about the tests that she's having to do.
It's like, you wonder why she has anxiety.
And the homework and the like rehearsal and quizzes. And I'm like,
constant pressure.
Constant pressure at such young age.
And now it's like these kids in elementary school. So this goes back to like, right, our whole point, the actual point of our conversation, which was like pushing these academics so early. We push them. And then our children aren't developmentally ready. Like, that's it, right? Children across all socioeconomic statuses, across all countries, across all religions, across all races, right? Children are children. Their developmental growth pattern doesn't change. Like, it has never changed since the dawn of time, right? Kids were playing with water like the first caveman children were pouring water the same way that our kids pour water. And there's a reason for that, because it's literally what they're built to do. And so it's like, we feel like, oh, we can just push them to do this faster and do this sooner and do this better and, you know, learn this sooner. And then therefore I guess it makes sense in some ways. If you do something sooner, then maybe you'll be better at it. And then maybe you'll be, you know, be able to be more successful. But what parents and schools and the system and the society doesn't realize is that you're actually doing the opposite. And it's funny because I always used to not joke, but, you know, we wouldn't need to teach children half the stuff that we teach them if we just waited until they were ready. So there's this whole idea, and I want to say it stems from like a Waldorfy philosophy, which, you know, in every educational philosophy, there's obviously like pluses and minuses, right? But one of the things that is talked about a lot is like when a child is ready to really learn. And it's something that happens in Montessori as well, because I distinctly remember my 2 oldest are, you know, my oldest went through like the kindergarten Montessori, and it wasn't until halfway through, so he was about 5.5, where he actually started really caring about learning. Like, the act of learning, not just like he always was curious and he always wanted to learn and wanted to take in information, but it wasn't until that age where he actually started to say, oh, I want to learn this, and kind of take that on. And one of the things that they talk about is this developmental switch that turns on. And it often happens when children start to lose their baby teeth for whatever reason. And I don't know how much truth, like how much scientific truth there is, but it's like a pretty common conversation that happens in this space with some of these more alternative progressive styles of education. And so it makes sense, right? Because kids are starting to kind of like grow up and they're starting to be more aware and they're starting to develop these more adult capabilities. And so once that happens, and then you're starting to introduce them into these, you know, ideas and complex concepts and real academic work, they take off because they're ready. So that's why in a lot of these countries that have the best school systems, right, like ranked, don't start pushing academics until that age, because there's no point. All you're doing is creating anxiety. All you're doing is creating a sense of self, like that the kids are, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart, I can't do this, this is too much. And because you're coupling that with our system, which at least in the US doesn't support the individual child. So when you have a kid who isn't ready, instead of being like, wow, you're not ready, let's support you playing with blocks for the next year, and that's okay. We're going to test you. We're going to quiz you. We're going to have you evaluated. We're going to make you go through all these hoops. We're going to put you on the spot. We're going to, we're going to tell you that you're reading at a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What 6-year-old needs to have that kind of feeling like they're not good enough? And again, then you say, well, we wonder why at 7, 8, 9, these kids are already at the point where they hate school. They're stressed. Why is an 8-year-old stressed? Please tell me. Because literally all an 8-year-old should be doing is like playing pretend and skipping around and like living in sunshine and rainbows. Because honestly, there's absolutely nothing that and people always argue, well, they have to learn right, in order to be doing X, Y, Z. When they want to and when they're ready, they'll learn it. Yep. It's the same thing with anything else, right? Like we don't teach them how to walk. They learn how to walk when they're ready. They watch us, they watch people around them. They test the waters. They try it. They're not ready. They go back to crawling. They try again when they feel a little bit more confident. And then all of a sudden it clicks and they do it. And we're not sitting there like giving them the steps. Okay, first you put one foot in front of the other and then you put right. They just magically, right, figure it out. And it's the same thing with so many academics, but we don't give them the chance to even show us, right? Like because we're pushing it so early, we're like, oh, why is your 3-year-old not reading? Why is your 6-year-old not doing, long division or whatever it is? And it's like, and if they are, cool. Like I said, I have kids who don't fit into a box. My kids are, I have been talking about this more often lately because it's just come up, but like we are a family of neurodiverse kids. Okay. From me to my husband, probably to at least 2 of my children, from what I can tell so far, and it's like one kid might be really interested in that and leaning into that. And so you meet them where they are, but your other kid might not care at all. And all they want to do is draw and they're amazing at it. Okay. So why can't you, let them draw? They'll learn how to read. They'll learn how to do math. They'll learn how to think. And I think it really comes back to like not trusting our kids and not trusting ourselves. Like we look so much to society, right? We look so much to like these huge companies to tell us, oh, your kid should be doing X. And we know that that's not necessarily true. Like in our heart, we might feel like, wait, my child doesn't seem ready. Why am I pushing this? This doesn't seem right. It's causing all these fights. It's causing all these power struggles. And it's like, but this company or this blah, blah, blah product makes me feel like I have to be doing that. And we have to, I think, really, like take a step back and just start kind of reconnecting with like our own intuition and being comfortable with following our kids because they know what they need. right? I mean, from birth, they know what they need. They know when they need to eat. They know when they're uncomfortable, right? They know when they're tired.
Yep.
It's natural. It's so much more natural than what we, than I think what we kind of like give them credit for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You, so many points there. I was just, yes, 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 yes. I think, I'll put me in that bucket of we've lost our confidence and our intuition with
Yep.
our kids' need, and we feel that sense of pressure from the schools, the system, like especially here in Australia, same with the US, like in the Western world, kids go to school. Kids go to school when they're like 5 or 6 till 18 kind of thing. Like that's just what we do. It's such an ingrained paradigm that that's what we do. This is how things go. Well, actually, especially I think from COVID, there's a lot of families getting out of that rat race and going, oh, there's another way to do this. There's another way to be. And like, taking your child out, homeschooling them or world schooling them or unschooling them, like so many different options. And yet I get it that so many of us are still, this is the way I was raised. And this is the parents are like, everyone goes to school. It's almost the same as everyone goes to school and everyone gets a 9-to-5 job. Well, actually, there's a whole lot of jobs that are not 9 to 5. You don't wear a suit. You don't sit in the computer.
You don't need to do that. And it's literally like when there's kind of this like, what is it? It's like a psychological thing, you like recognize something and then you kind of like start to see it and then you accept it, like whatever the process is. Right. And I think people like, it's hard because you're breaking this massive cycle. Number one, any like cycle of anything is hard to break. And it's like people look at me like I'm crazy because we are, and I just was telling you this before we went live, but for everybody who's listening, I was a teacher for 10 years. Okay. I taught in the public school system. I have a master's in education. I literally dedicated my life. Like that was my life. And I left because I just, from an ethical and like I don't even know how to explain it. I just could not continue doing it because I knew that what I was doing in my classroom, even though I was as progressive as one could be, right? Like my kids were doing so much self-directed stuff and project-based learning and discussions and self-initiated research and all these things because I taught older kids. At the end of the day, I still had to give these tests. I still had to teach students who were immigrants to the country for only 6 months, didn't speak a lick of English, but I had to teach them Shakespeare because that was the curriculum. And of course, my colleagues, like we all just would close our doors and we would do what we needed to do for our kids. But you still have the testing, the administration, the parents, and so at the end of the day, it just got to the point where I was like, I know that I can't keep doing this because it's like going against what I believe in. And I just got to the point where it was just too much. So I left and I'm doing, I started doing my own thing. So, and then when my kids were about to enter school age, so my oldest is going to be 7. And he was in a Montessori program, which was, it's absolutely incredible. It's like one of the only things that I'm like, don't want to have to leave. Obviously with my family, because if they're watching, they'll be upset if I don't care about leaving anything but the school. No, of course I'm going to miss you people. But so when I spoke with the school right before he was going to go over the summer, they said to me, I said, well, he's about a grade and a half level ahead in math. So like, what's the plan? What are we going to do? Because he loves math and he loves science. Oh, well, we'll put him on an iPad for enrichment. And I was like, he's never been on an iPad. He doesn't even know. What? No. And then I said, well, okay, well, what about like a science curriculum? We don't teach science until 6th grade. Okay. I'm like, well, we'll be withdrawing. So I withdrew him and I ended up sending him to like a micro school that was in my town that's been run by a friend of mine who's an educator. And it's been an incredible experience for him. Mm-hmm. But I got to the point where I was like, we can either be paying $40,000+ a year for a private school, or we can homeschool. And I don't really want to homeschool because I'll be honest, like I love my children, but I love what I do. And I couldn't do both of those things as well as I do them if I also had to be with my kids all day, because that's just not me. More power to you if that's you. It's just not me. And so we basically decided that we were going to start traveling the world and slow traveling. So moving every 1 to 3 months, basically, typically going to be about a 3-month stint in each place. And we are going to just literally bop around the world, and we are choosing to pull our kids out of school and sell our home. Like, that is how strongly I feel about it, which is, people are like, oh my God, I could never do it. And I'm like, no, but I think if you understood what I understood, you would consider alternatives much more, what's the word? Like, like you wouldn't just be okay with being like, oh, okay, well, whatever, I'm sure it'll be fine. You'd be like, oh, no, I can't do that. I need to find an alternative. And so you are seeing all these micro schools popping up and all these world schooling hubs and all these homeschooling pods and because parents are finally kind of like, wait a second, my kid was either, maybe they were thriving at home because they was more self-directed, or maybe you saw how much they hated school because you were seeing what they were being asked to do. And you were like, wait a second, like, why is my kid doing that? That's totally not appropriate. Or, and things like that oh, now I understand why they don't ever want to go to school, because all they're doing is memorizing worksheets or whatever. And again, like, nothing against the teachers, because it has been a complete and utter shit show, but the whole system is not built for real learning. It's just not.
I think that's actually a good point to just highlight, because I'm conscious, and I'm talking about the teachers versus the system, because I'm conscious every time I post on Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids about school learning, anxiety at school, or like, what kids are learning and stuff like that. I am very concerned that I don't want teachers and educators reading the posts going, we try so effing hard and we do so much for our kids and we love our kids. So I want to just make the difference between the system is
system. And you know what? And like, that's part of why I had to leave teaching, because I was online and I'm like, F you. I'm like, you don't understand what we're going through. You don't understand how much, like, it was just got to the point where again, like, the disrespect. That's why like, I always preface it by like, I was an educator. I was in the trenches for 10 years and I worked at a very urban school. So 50% of my population was on free and reduced lunch. 50% of my population was coming from socioeconomic status, like very low socioeconomic status. Typically, I had students who were living in shelters, who were living out of their cars, who had been abused, who had experienced significant trauma. And so for me, again, that's like a whole added layer, right? Like, I can't even. And then we talk about like Head Start programs and universal preschool. And it's terrifying to me, because oftentimes the children who are in the most difficult position, right, are these children who are coming from this kind of a home, right? They're a one, either it's like a one parent home, or the parents are working so much, or there's been trauma, right? Like generational trauma and poverty and just, food insecurity. Like, there's so many levels, right, of this. And then you take these children and you push them into academics to catch them up. And you're like, no, that's literally the opposite of what they need. What they need is to learn social and emotional skills. How do they learn that? Through play. How do they learn that? Through being outside, hiking around and playing with the butterflies, right? Like, they literally learn that by doing the opposite of where you're about to do in a preschool, where you're trying to catch them up. And so they end up getting the shit end of the stick again. And then again, we see like the rise in anxiety, the rise in violence, the rise in the inability to control our emotions and regulate. And it's like, okay, but it all stems back to this, and so it's hard. Teachers, like, I don't know how, and I mean, I know it's, I mean, teachers are leaving in droves. Like such a teacher shortage in the US, like they can't find, I mean, there's so many positions that have been gone unfilled. You have teachers literally walking out, you have teachers quit, you have teachers, resigning way ahead of like when they should be, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're done. Like there's nothing left to give anymore. So that's like 100%, like I am 100% teacher, like power to you, because I don't know how you're still walking into a public school, especially like after everything that has gone on in the past couple of years, on top of everything that was already going on. And what people talk about is like the pandemic. And from the perspective of somebody who was in the classroom way prior to the pandemic, like these were issues that were already there, and a pandemic just exacerbated them. Like these aren't new issues that are coming up. I mean, some of them are, but so much of it is like, no, this was already an issue,
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's not just the last couple of years. It's been way long standing, longer than that. I didn't mention, but yesterday my oldest, was home from school because there was a teacher strike on here in Sydney, in the public schools. And so they said there's going to be minimal supervision if you're able to keep your kids home. And luckily I work from home doing this, and my husband does too. And I was like, we are keeping you home. Like it's not a question. We need to give the teachers the time and the respect, and
yeah, and it's so sad that it has to come to that. And it's interesting because some, there's obviously like unions that don't allow them to strike and don't, or that teachers who don't even have unions. I have friends who are posting some stuff and I'm like, wait, why are you doing that? And they're like, we don't have a union. We have to, otherwise and I'm like, oh my God, like it makes me want to cry, because I'm like, I feel so horrible. Like teachers are literally the backbone of society, and you're like, it's so frustrating. And you know what, it's the teachers, and they know what they should be, like, they know what they want to be doing. Right. And they know what, like, they should be doing. That's their job. They don't need to be told what they should be doing. They know. And they also know that the kids are the ones that are suffering. And that is what kills the teacher day in and day out, because that's what got to me. Because I was going in and I was like, I can't keep doing this stuff knowing that I'm not doing what's best for my kids. Not because I don't want to, because I physically can't, because of the system and the way that it's set up. And it's just so unfortunate. And it definitely contributes, because then, teachers are stressed, and then they're coming into the classroom and they're like, they get to the point where they're like, we just have to do this because this is what we have to do, because I can't keep fighting anymore, and then it's just this big cycle. We were talking about the breaking of the cycle, So many cycles need to be broken.
Yes. So let's finish up by talking about, well, you can share about let's say there may be a lot of families in this group, or watching along. This will be up on YouTube later, so if you're watching there, hello. But if there are families with kids in school, they don't have the option to, pull them out and homeschool, world school, or stuff like that. How do we turn around? I know this is a lot of this is stressful. It's almost like a doom and gloom topic. It's not, but I want to sort of share. Firstly, I want people to go over, and if they're on Instagram, which most people really are, is to go and follow and look through Play, Learn, Thrive Kids Instagram account, because your videos, they're hilarious.
Thank you. I'm learning. I'm trying.
Like, they're so real as well. Like, there's no shaming parents there. It's all about play and how to help your kids just thrive and be happy and learn through play. Anyway, I don't know really what my question is. What can you share?
No, I think I feel like I feel the same. It's like, oh my God, this whole thing sucks. Everything sucks. And it's like, okay, so what can we do about it? Right? Like, how can we, like, what's the step that we can take, right? As the parent who has the kid in the school, who can't homeschool, doesn't have that privilege. And that's the vast majority of people, which I recognize, like, as for myself, us being able to do this is such a privilege. And I think the biggest thing is, number one, know that the home matters. Right? So the energy in the home and what you do in the home, that makes a huge difference. So if your child is coming home and crying about homework and you're like, F it, don't do it, I don't care. And you literally don't care. You're like, let's bake cookies. Screw your spelling words, right? Like, and you just understand that a lot of the times homework and things like that are being given because they have to, right? Like the teachers, like, they have the pressure to do that. And so knowing when you can kind of say, you know what, I told, this is what the start of the pandemic, I said to parents, feel free, send your child's teacher or the administrator an email, and you can copy everybody under the sun and say, I am prioritizing our family and our family's mental health and our child's well-being over worksheets, over memorization, over things that, you know, we will read, we will play, we will hike, we will eat dinner together, we will, you know, do puzzles, we'll talk. And if your child is resistant to things, right, like, again, it's a sign and there's a reason why that's happening. And so trying to kind of figure out, what is it about it? And knowing that it's okay. Like, your kid is not going to fall behind what? Behind what? A random standardized test that's going to give you a number? Your kid's not a number, they're a human. And there's so many different facets to what it means to be a human, right? And to be successful in this world. And it's not a number. It's not, well, he got a 75% on blah, blah, blah test. It doesn't matter. No one cares. Like, at the end of the day, right? Like, when you're on your deathbed, you're not like, well, I remember that test in 4th grade when I got like all my spelling words wrong, you know, or whatever. It's like, teach them to be good humans, teach them to learn, to want to learn, right? Teach them to love to learn, to ask questions, to not be scared to get things wrong. And don't let the pressure that you feel like, I feel like it's like, kind of just push that away and be like, no, I know that my kid, you know, my kid's happiness and their joy of learning is more important than a test score, is more important than them being in XYZ course, right? That's always going to matter more. So kind of prioritizing that at home. And then that, I think that mindset will trickle down, right, to the kids. And then from the, like, you know, speaking up and trying to get involved. And again, this is like such a hard lift because it's not like parents have anything else on their plates, right? Like, we can't take on anything else. It's like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. Yeah. But if you do feel so inclined and you have the time and it's something that you feel passionate about, trying to get involved in, you know, your district, like, there's, you know, offices that you can run for, and parent teacher associations and, you know, different things like that, where you can have a voice, and supporting teachers. Like, just literally, I will tell you, and like, I don't even want to cry because I'll probably cry. The most important thing that you can do for your kid's teacher is tell them how much you appreciate them. Literally send them an email and say, whatever it is, like, pick something that you notice about them, that they are trying so hard, or that they recognize something in your kid that no one else did, or you love that they're, you know, trying to incorporate play, or that they're taking those extra 5 minutes and letting the kids just run around outside, and that they're risking their own professional whatever, like, to fight for their kid. I can probably count on one hand in 10 years the amount of emails that I got from parents, like, thanking me for, genuinely just thanking me for something out of the blue. I can probably less than 5. And, you know, I worked with a lot of parents one-on-one, you know, in PBT meetings and in parent conferences. And of course, they always give you, you know, a lot of times, you know, you have great conversations, but like, it's freaking hard, and you don't see the reward of your work until, I mean, way, way later. I have a student right now who I'm not going to like shout out publicly, although he probably would love it if I did. who just got into literally every single top university that you could ever get into, like in the US, to go to school for public policy. This was a child who I had in 9th grade, who was an immigrant, who was here undocumented, okay, who came, who had nothing, and who was an incredible student. He was such a hard worker, an amazing writer, and fought, and is now literally like changing the world and like breaking this massive cycle. And it's like, I didn't get to see that for what, 12 years, 10 years, 10 years. I mean, he was my student, literally one of the first years that I was a teacher. So it's been like 12 years, and I had to wait 12 freaking years, right, to see one student and to see them do what I knew that they were capable of doing. And like, that sucks, right? You don't get that immediate feedback. Like, you do something great for a student, and then all of a sudden, boom, the next day you see the results and the reward. Teachers don't get that. It's like years down the road where, and you know, so like having your child even say, go back to a teacher that impacted them and have them write an email or send a letter, like send them a picture and be like, hey, this is me now. Remember when I was in your class and you did XYZ? Like, that stuff really goes a long way for morale, which I feel like right now for teachers is boop. So those are, I think those are like pretty simple things. And just the biggest is like the mindset at home. I think, I don't know if you would agree with that, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, 1000%. The energy and the emotion and the energy that we have at home as parents lays the foundation for how our home feels and how our kids feel at home. So even if there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stress going on at school, then home can be a safe haven and a place of play and fun and joy and just laid back, like relaxed, you know. I think that comes from us, because we can't control what's going on at school. We can't change the system, but in the home, we are kind of like the captains of the ship. Like, we set the tone, and we say, I said to my son this morning, because he brought home a homework little booklet, and since last year, over the COVID pandemic, when we were like in lockdown at the end of last year, I made the decision to email the teacher last year and say, hey, we're not going to be doing any homework apart from reading, because I know how important reading is. And I was a speech pathologist, all about the literacy. And I know that's separate, but with homework, I've read a lot of, Alfie Kohn's work and research about the myth of homework and how it is not, for elementary or primary school age kids, it's not beneficial academically or for non-academic skills. And so I said, you know what, we're not doing that. If you want to do it, this morning I said, if you want to do it, you can fill some in. If you don't want to, that is fine. Like, same as you for your kids. Arthur also loves maths. He's like a maths whiz. And so we do that stuff with him, and we talk about it, and I throw things out and he'll work it out and say it back. But if he didn't, and if he didn't like it, then we wouldn't. Like, I think you said,
like mine too. He's like, quiz me, like my tens place. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm an English teacher. Okay, kid, go to your dad. Like, and it's like, if they want it, they will find it, right? Like, they will find a way to get it. And it really is just about following that kid. And in your own family, each child is going to be different, and you're going to be different with each child. And that's okay, right? Like, you're the way that, one of the things I tell my kids all the time, and this is like sort of off topic, but kind of on topic, like, fair is not always equal, right? What one person needs, the other person might only want, and that's okay. You might not need an extra 2 hours of sleep a night because your body doesn't need that. So I'm not going to force you to stay in bed, or I'm not going to force the other person to get up when that's not what they need. And each kid in every family is different in terms of what they need. And so knowing that that's okay, like, it's okay if Johnny is really good at math and wants to do math, and it's okay if his sister, you know, only wants to do writing, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have to be so well, everyone has to tick all these perfect little boxes, because kids are not boxes,
No.
right? They're very rarely are they in a box. They're only in a box because we shove them in a box,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's just like, embrace who your kid is, whoever they are, like that's who they're meant to be. And if you love them, and if you are there to support them and challenge them just enough so that they, you know, that they are growing, right? Like, it doesn't mean that everything should just be easy for them and they don't have to ever do anything that they don't want to do. That's not it either, right? But it's like knowing when you can kind of push them a little bit, knowing when you need to back off, knowing when, you know, they don't want to be, you know, they don't want to be forced into doing something. Like, I think it's just really important to recognize those cues, you know, and being like emotionally in tune with your kid and seeing where they are, and just adapting to each kid, which is hard as hell. I mean, you know, especially if you have multiple kids, it's like keeping up with,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's possible. Do it.
You know, just quickly before we hop off, I remember seeing a little quote on Facebook or Instagram somewhere that said, this is kind of a shout out for all the kids who were a pleasure to have in class, and now they have anxiety, or because and I was, that was me. I fit in that box you were just talking about. I got relatively good grades. I wasn't the very top. I wasn't, you know, below average. I did well. I had a good group of friends. I ticked the boxes. I went to extracurricular things. You know, I fit in the box. That was so lucky for me. But I also had super like underlying anxiety that meant I have to do the right things. I have to turn that assignment in time. I've got to read extra.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we like you said, we're all individual.
Yeah.
I'm doing my work now. You're doing different work. My husband does different. There are accountants and doctors and Beyoncés and artists and Van Goghs. Why, if we have such a diverse range of people as adults, why must they all learn the same things in the same way until they're like 17?
And it's the same age. None of it makes any sense.
It doesn't make sense.
And then, like you said, you have bankers, you have doctors, you have these, and they're miserable because they felt pushed down a certain path, and they were never allowed to lean into the stuff that really would light them up, right? And they were kind of told like, oh, you know, if you want to be successful, these are like the 5 career paths that you can take, right? And it's like these 5-year-olds who are like, I want to be a banker, and I'm like, what? Like that's like mind blowing to me. I'm like, how do you even know what that means? Right. Like, and for me, for my kids, I'm like, I don't want you to be anything other than who you are and what you were meant to be. And you'll figure that out. And I'm there to kind of help, you know, like weave you in and out of that journey until you can kind of figure that out yourself. But it's like, we don't mold our kids. We're not there to, one of the things I love to talk about is like, we're not a carpenter. We're not there to physically build our child into something that we want them to be. We're like a gardener, right? There's like, they're there and they're going to grow, like however the F they're going to grow. And it's like our job to like figure out what does the soil need? How much water, you know? And it's like, we are there to cultivate. We're not there to create. And I think that that's just, if you can shift that mindset, that is what's going to help take the pressure off from you to feel like, oh, you know, my kid has to become a doctor or a lawyer, otherwise I was a failure, right? And I think some of it comes down to that. Like we feel like, oh, if our kid doesn't meet society's expectations, then that says something about us as a parent, right? And of course, like, yes, right, we are responsible for our children in a lot of ways, but your child can be successful as anything. They can be an artist, right? Like just because they're not a doctor or a lawyer or one of these very traditional careers that are looked up to as like, this is what, it doesn't mean that they're not successful. It's like, do they wake up happy? Do they want to go to work? Do they want to do what, like the whole thing about if you do what you love, you'll never work a day is like BS. In my mind, it's like, if you're doing what you love, you're working all the time and you love it. And you don't care that you're working all the time. And all you want to do is what you love and what you're working on. Like I wake up and I'm like, I can't wait for my kids to go to school so I can work. Like, I also can't wait to get them out of the house because they're driving me nuts right now. But it's like, I'm so excited every day to wake up and continue the work that I'm doing. And that is success, right? Like, that's what we want for our kids. We want them to be happy. We want them to be motivated. We want them to love their life and enjoy their life. Like, that's all that we can really ask for. So I think just keeping that in mind and like letting yourself like chill. Yeah. That's what's going to help with letting go of the pressure, letting go of the expectations of society for your kid to be XYZ. Your kid is who they are. And, you know, I just think that there's so much to learn from what our kids learn naturally, you know. You don't have to be so worried about it all. Is sort of like, we can take a nap on the couch. Like, it's okay. Your kid will be okay. Like, let them. I fell asleep. I took an hour and a half nap where my 5-year-old and 3-year-old, I'm going to get like in trouble for this, were playing in the playroom. They were literally just playing. I had no idea what they were doing because I was in the other room taking a nap. And then I woke up and I was like, oh shit, it's been like an hour and a half. They were quiet. They were playing. They were building something. I don't even know. I went in there. They're still in there doing their thing. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. like they'll be okay. You know, they really will. They're built to last, baby. You know, that's how we've survived so long.
I just wish I could have your like brain in my brain. the way your brain. But you know, the way you see your perspective and your lens on kids and play and learning and joy, I think we would have a whole lot. We would have a very different planet of adults if a lot of us see things the way that you're describing and chill and just take that pressure off ourselves, off them. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's not right in the world and that's stressful and that's going wrong. And, you know, we're the parents who are cultivating. I wrote down cultivate, not create. But we're cultivating the next generation's leaders and change makers and policy makers and adults. So this stuff is important. I want to say such a huge thank you for giving literally like an hour of your time.
No, please. I could talk about this for hours, baby. We can do like a daily, you know, no, this is like my thing. I love talking about this and I'm super excited to see you because I haven't seen you in like, I feel like a year. Yeah. And then to be able to just address, you know, your community and talk to everybody. And obviously if people have questions, I don't know how you usually handle that. Like, I haven't really looked at the Facebook, like if this is streaming live and people are asking questions, I apologize because I haven't been looking, but I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to, if you do, I do have a Facebook page and a Facebook group and all that. But I will say and it's at Play, Learn, Thrive Kids on Facebook, and the group is connected to the page. So you should be able to find it. But I am much more active over on Instagram. So it's same thing, at Play, Learn, Thrive Kids. And I do some consulting work for all different things. So for example, one of the things that I'm doing right now, we were just kind of talking about this, is if you work for a company and you feel like you would want someone like me to come in and give a training, right, about how to handle parenting little kids while you're working from home, about how to create a space that is going to really encourage independent play and really encourage purposeful like learning and an environment that invites that, among a million other things that I talk about during these different workshops that I do. Let me know. You can feel free to email me or send me a DM on Instagram. My email is Alanna, ALANNA at playlearnthrivekids.com. If that's something that you think your company would benefit from. I've been doing workshops for corporate stuff, so that's cool. And then over on Instagram, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can.
Yes. Yeah, I will put the links and stuff like that into the Facebook Live now and into YouTube when this goes up a little bit later. Yeah, get in touch with Alanna, guys, and go and follow over on Instagram, Play, Learn, Thrive Kids. Before we go, can you did I mention it on the live or before about when I saw in your email signature the 1.6 million view, like the viral reel that you have on Instagram? Tell people what that is, and then I want you guys to go and all find that. It's a short.
I feel like, wait, can I like share I feel like I need to like share my screen. It's like ridiculous. No, so for real. Okay, so I ended up having a reel go viral. It was just when I started doing reels, so it was not something that I was expecting. And I was honestly just trying to put something out there. And it was a video that I had from a few months back of my son and my daughter. When we had just moved to our house, I set up this like little invitation to play for them. And it was literally spaghetti and a strainer or colander or whatever you want to call it. And it was here, and I'll show it. Can I share my screen? Am I allowed? Here we go. Okay. So this was it.
Oh, yay.
And sorry, that's like my husband, or like I'll stretch this out so people don't have to see the rest of my life. But so it was this right here. It literally has like so many views.
And it's frozen, the screen.
Bring the action.
Is it frozen?
Yeah, it's kind of like the indoor water park tips is frozen for a sec. Do you want to, can you close it and reopen it, or? I could hear the audio, but then the screen, it's still stuck. But yeah, try it again and then it should.
Now is it off though?
Yeah.
Or
Now,
I'm sorry, can you see now?
No, share your screen again.
Okay, sorry guys, this is like, tech is not my thing. So this is the reel. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so it's literally of my son. He was probably 3 at the time.
3, yeah. He's like 3.
And this is it, guys. This is the whole reel. And it was just about like kids not really needing toys. Like, you know, we joke around with them that they play with boxes and Tupperware and cups and, you know, clickers and keys and all the things that they're not really supposed to be playing with. But this kept them entertained for a very, very long time. But anyway, so this has like 1.8 now million views, which is just mind blowing to me because, and I show my kid and he's like, really? Like, okay. But yeah, and then I just redid this. Actually, I set it up just like, again, just to see what would happen a couple weeks ago. I just put it in my office and I put out like a huge thing of spaghetti and I had all 3 of the older kids and I put out the colanders and I just like had my camera running kind of like on the side and they just, they go, oh, the spaghetti thing. And I was like, we did this one time, like 3 years ago. And this, you still remember this. And they literally automatically just started, eating the spaghetti and then like sticking in. And my 3-year-old and Henry, who's almost 7, sat there for like 45 minutes, just sticking spaghetti into the colander. And I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe that this literally just happened again.
Wow.
I love it. It's like, it keeps them busy. They don't need anything other than our love.
Oh, man. I love it. Okay, we could talk forever, but we won't. So thank you so much. I will, put all the links in. I encourage you guys to reach out and follow Alanna or ask her about the consulting work that she mentioned. I am sure we will have you back on very, very, very soon. So thank you.
Awesome. Yay. All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. See you, everyone.
Thank you.